The quiet storm Samantha Brooks had always lived a careful life. She wasn't the kind of woman who made loud choices or ran after big dreams. Instead, she found peace in quiet things: warm tea, soft sweaters, and the steady calm of her husband. David, he was kind and older than her by almost 15 years. When they met, he had already lived through love and loss. His wife Ellen had passed away from cancer years before, leaving him with a teenage son named Noah. Samantha had never tried to replace Ellen. She simply stepped into David's life and filled the spaces that needed comfort. Their home sat on the edge of a peaceful lake in Vermont. Tall trees surrounded the house, and in fall the leaves turned golden like fire. In winter, the world outside their window became soft and white. Samantha loved it there. It was quiet, calm, and far from the noise she used to know in the city. Life was simple, just how she liked it. Noah, David's son, had been away for a long time. He was now 23, studying architecture at a college in Chicago. Samantha had only seen him a few times. He was polite, respectful, but distant, like he carried something heavy inside. Whenever they met, there was a wall between them. Not anger or dislike, just space. Quiet space she didn't know how to cross. That Sunday started like any other. David had just left for a short work trip, and Samantha had the house to herself. It was cold outside, so she decided to draw a warm bath. She filled the tub, added lavender oil, and let the steam rise into the air. The scent wrapped around her like a soft scarf. She let her hair down, slid into the warm water, and leaned her head back. For once, she allowed herself to relax. The water hugged her body. The lavender calmed her nerves. Her eyes drifted closed. Then it happened. The bathroom door creaked open. Her eyes flew open. She pulled herself upright in the tub, heart jumping. "Noah," she said, her voice soft and surprised. There was a pause. Then came his voice, deeper than she remembered. "Sorry. Didn't know someone was in here." His tone was quiet, not embarrassed exactly, but careful. Samantha could just barely see the shape of him in the doorway before he stepped back quickly and shut the door. Silence. Only the sound of her breath and the soft water rippling around her. Samantha sat there for a long moment, her skin warm from the bath, but her heart racing for a different reason. She hadn't locked the door. She didn't expect anyone to be home, and she certainly hadn't expected him. Noah was supposed to arrive later in the week, or so David had said. But now he was here, in the house, and she'd just seen him for the first time in nearly a year. She took a shaky breath and leaned back again, but the peace she had felt just minutes ago was gone. Her thoughts ran wild. It wasn't just the surprise of being walked in on, it was the way his voice sounded. Mature, calm, almost protective. And the way he didn't panic or slam the door or make the moment worse. He simply stepped away. Still, the image of him, taller now, broader, stayed in her mind. Samantha hadn't felt this unsettled in a long time. Not in a bad way, but not in a good way either. Just different. Alive in a way that surprised her. She stayed in the bath a little longer, hoping the water would calm her again. But it didn't. Her thoughts had already drifted somewhere they shouldn't. From memories of Noah as a boy, to how much he had changed, to the look on his face, what little she saw of it when he realized she was there. And most of all, to the strange new feeling in her chest. Not fear, not guilt. Something quieter. Something she couldn't name. By the time she got out of the bath, wrapped in a towel, and moved softly down the hallway, the house felt different, as if the air itself had shifted. She heard footsteps upstairs, the sound of a suitcase being unzipped, and then silence again. She thought of saying something, a joke maybe, to make it less awkward, but she didn't. She didn't know what words would come out. And maybe, just maybe, she didn't want to speak. Not yet. Not until she understood what that moment had meant. Because in one brief instant, something had changed. Not just in the air, but inside her. And she didn't know how to take it back. Not that she wanted to. Not really. The next morning, the house was quiet. Samantha walked into the kitchen wearing a thick sweater, her damp hair tied up in a loose bun. The scent of fresh coffee greeted her before she even reached the counter. She was surprised to see Noah there, standing by the stove, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. He looked different than she remembered. Taller, yes. His shoulders had broadened and his face had sharpened into the shape of a man. But it wasn't just that. There was something deeper. Something in the way he moved. Calm but heavy, as if he was carrying thoughts he didn't talk about. He handed her a mug without a word. She hesitated, then took it with a small smile. I didn't mean to scare you yesterday, he said quietly. The door wasn't locked. Samantha nodded, her fingers wrapping around the warm cup. No, it's okay. I should have locked it. I just didn't expect anyone to be home early. He gave a small shrug, still not meeting her eyes. Dad said I could come a few days early. Didn't think it would be a big deal. It's not, she said quickly. You're always welcome here. The silence between them was not heavy, just cautious, like both of them were walking on thin ice, not sure how deep the water was beneath their feet. Later that day, Samantha went about her usual chores. She folded laundry, dusted the bookshelves, and watched the light fall through the windows. But she kept thinking about Noah, not in a way she understood, but in a way that wouldn't go away. He was a young man now. Kind, thoughtful, but clearly guarded. She could see it in the way he looked at the floor when he talked, the way he smiled with only half his mouth, and the way he never asked personal questions. But somehow that made her want to know more about him. They began talking in song. Over the next few days in the evenings, they'd sit in the living room with warm drinks. Samantha would read, and Noah would sketch buildings in a leather notebook. He was studying architecture. He told her his dream was to design homes, not tall glass towers in the city, but quiet, beautiful places where people could grow old in peace. She liked that. It fit the person he had become. Quiet, creative, and full of thoughts he kept to himself. One night, as they sat in the living room, Samantha said softly, "You look a lot like your father when he was younger." Noah looked up. Really? I don't remember him that way. Mostly remember him after Mom died. Samantha's smile faded gently. I'm sorry. He gave a little shake of his head. It's okay. People always say time heals, but I think it just softens the edges. Doesn't really take it away. Samantha watched him, feeling a tug in her chest. There was something honest in him, something raw that reminded her of herself at that age. Lost, unsure, but deeply feeling everything. She found herself telling him things she hadn't told anyone else. About how she gave up art school to care for her sick mother. About how sometimes she still dreamed of painting, though her brushes stayed hidden in a box in the attic. He listened quietly, nodding at the right moments, never rushing her. I think you should paint again, he said one night, not looking up from his sketch. Even if it's just for yourself. Samantha felt her cheeks warm. Maybe, she said. Maybe, she said. Maybe I will. Oh, that night, as she got ready for bed, she caught her reflection in the mirror. She didn't look the same as she did 10 years ago. Her skin had lines. Her eyes were tired. There was also something new, something she hadn't seen in years. Color. It wasn't just Noah's words. It was his presence. The way he made her feel seen, not as David's wife, not as the quiet woman who kept the house tidy, but as Samantha, a woman who still had dreams, who still felt something deep inside. The next day it snowed. Thick, soft flakes covered the porch. Samantha made soup, and they watched a movie together, sharing a blanket. There was nothing strange about it, but every time their hands brushed, she felt something flicker between them, something unspoken. She told herself not to read into it, but it was getting harder. One afternoon, she found him standing outside, staring at the frozen lake. She brought him a cup of hot chocolate and stood beside him. You don't talk much about your mom, she said gently. He nodded, eyes on the ice. I think part of me still misses her like it was yesterday, and part of me doesn't want to remember. It hurts less that way. Samantha reached out and touched his arm, not in a romantic way, but in a human way. You're allowed to feel both. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and for a moment something passed between them, something that didn't belong to family, something deeper. Samantha pulled her hand back and stepped away. Heart racing. She didn't know what that look meant. Or maybe she did, but she wasn't ready to face it yet. Not while the snow was still falling. Not while her husband was away. Still, that night, as she lay in bed, she thought about Noah's eyes and the way he made her feel something she hadn't felt in years. Not fear, not guilt, but longing, quiet, dangerous longing. The storm came in the middle of the week. Thick gray clouds covered the sky, and heavy rain fell without warning. It pounded against the windows, soaking the porch and making the trees sway in the wind. Samantha stood in the kitchen, watching it all through the glass. She had always loved storms. There was something comforting about being inside while the world outside went wild. Noah walked in behind her, holding a stack of firewood. His jacket was wet and water dripped from his hair. Samantha turned quickly. "You're soaked," she said with a gentle laugh. "You didn't have to go out in that." "You said we were running low," he replied with a half smile. "Didn't want you to be cold tonight." Samantha opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. Instead, she took his jacket and hung it near the fire to dry. Her hands brushed against his sleeve, and again, she felt that strange pull, like the air between them had changed, even though neither of them moved. Later, as the storm grew louder, the power went out. The lights flickered once, then vanished, leaving the house in soft darkness. Samantha lit a few candles, placing them around the living room. The flames danced gently, casting warm light on the wall. She found Noah near the fireplace, trying to start a fire with the wood he had brought in. His face glowed in the candlelight, and she couldn't help but notice how grown he looked. How calm and steady, even as the wind howled outside. Once the fire crackled and warmed the room, Samantha brought over 2 glasses of red wine. She hadn't planned on drinking that night, but something about the storm made her feel like doing something a little different, a little braver. They sat on the rug, wrapped in soft blankets. The heat was comforting. The air smelled like wood smoke and lavender from the candle nearby. Noah took a sip of his wine, then looked at her. "I used to come here with Mom," he said quietly. "We'd sit on the same rug and play board games during storms." Samantha turned toward him. "I didn't know that. She used to swim in the lake even when it was freezing," he continued. "She said the cold made her feel alive." "She sounds like a strong woman," Samantha said softly. She was. Noah's voice was steady, but his eyes looked far away. Then, after a pause, he added, "You remind me of her sometimes." Samantha blinked, surprised. "Me?" He nodded. "Not in how you look, in how you make things feel safe, quiet, real." She didn't know what to say. The room felt smaller all of a sudden. Not in a bad way, but in a way that made her heart beat faster. There was a long silence between them, the kind of silence that says more than words ever could. Then Noah looked at her again, his voice low but clear. "I've been thinking about you since I got here." Samantha froze. He didn't stop. "I know it's not simple. I know who you are in my life. But I needed you to know that." Samantha swallowed, her throat dry. She couldn't look at him. She stared at the fire instead. "Noah," she whispered, her voice barely above the crackling wood. "I'm not saying this to confuse you," he said. I see you, Samantha, not just as Dad's wife, but you, and I don't think I'm imagining this." She finally looked at him then, and what she saw in his eyes wasn't childish or confused. It was real, deep, honest. Her hands trembled slightly as she held her wine glass. She had no words to give him, no clear answer. "You're young," she said at last. "And don't say it," he interrupted gently. "Don't push it away just because it doesn't fit into a neat little box." She looked down at the fire. The orange light flickered over both of them like it knew something was changing. Samantha felt like her heart had stepped into a place it had no business being. But it was too late now. The door had already opened, and no part of her wanted to close it. Still, she said nothing more. She stood slowly, careful not to meet his eyes again. "I should get some rest," she said softly. Noah didn't argue. He nodded and stayed by the fire, silent. Samantha walked up the stairs with slow, careful steps. Her mind was full of noise, but her body felt quiet. Too quiet, like it had heard a truth it couldn't unhear. That night, she lay awake in bed, listening to the rain. The sound was soft now, like a lullaby, but her thoughts were sharp. She thought about the way he looked at her, not as a boy, but as a man. About the way her heart had reacted, not with fear, but with something else. Something she hadn't felt in a long time. Desire, longing. Not just for touch, but to be seen, to be understood, to be loved. Not safely, but deeply. She knew it was dangerous. She knew it couldn't go anywhere, and yet she couldn't lie to herself. The storm had done more than knock the lights out. It had lit a fire inside her, and she couldn't ignore it. The storm passed by morning, but the silence it left behind felt louder than thunder. Samantha moved through the house slowly, folding blankets, wiping down the counter, and trying not to think too much. But her mind kept drifting back to the night before, to the fire, to Noah's voice, to the way he looked at her like she was something more than she believed herself to be. She didn't know what to do with the feelings sitting quietly in her chest. They weren't loud or wild. They were soft but constant, like a song playing under everything else. A song she couldn't stop hearing. Noah stayed quiet that day, too. He spent most of the morning outside, clearing branches that had fallen from the storm. Samantha watched him from the window. How calm he looked. How steady. Part of her wished she hadn't seen the way he looked at her last night. But the deeper truth was, part of her was grateful she did. After lunch, she found him sitting on the edge of the dock, staring out at the still water. It was cold, but not freezing, and the lake looked like glass under the winter sky. She hesitated, then walked down to join him. She sat a few feet away, their shoulders not touching but not far. They didn't speak at first. The water lapped gently against the wood. The breeze played with her hair. "I was scared to come home," Noah said quietly. Samantha turned to him. "Why?" she asked. "Because this house doesn't feel like just my dad's anymore. It feels like yours," he said, and I didn't know how to be around that. She looked down at her hands. "I never wanted to take anything from you, Noah." "No," he said softly. "You didn't. You gave something back, actually. A kind of peace this house hasn't had in a long time." The words warmed something deep in her chest, but they also made her ache. He turned to her then, his voice lower, more serious. "What I said last night, I meant it. I don't expect anything from you." Samantha didn't answer. She just looked at him. She saw the boy he used to be, the one who lost his mother too early. And she saw the man he was now, the one who knew how to listen, how to feel, how to carry quiet things. "I'm not used to being seen like this," she said finally. "David's been good to me." "But he sees me like a gentle woman who keeps the house calm. You see something else?" Noah nodded. "I see all of you." Samantha closed her eyes for a second. The wind touched her face gently. "You're young," she whispered. "I'm not a child," he replied. "No," she agreed. "You're not." He reached for her hand then, not quickly, not boldly, just a slow, quiet motion. His fingers brushed hers. She didn't pull away. For a long time they sat there in silence, their hands barely touching, the cold air all around them, the lake reflecting the sky like a mirror. But the moment had to break, and it did. That evening David called. He said he'd be home the next afternoon. Samantha stood in the kitchen, the phone still in her hand long after the call ended. Her heart was quiet but full of 1,000 questions. What had she done? What had she allowed to grow between them? Noah stepped into the room. "He's coming back," she said. He nodded once. "I figured." She placed the phone down carefully. "Things will go back to normal." He didn't say anything right away. "Then, is that what you want?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her eyes filled with tears before she could stop them. Not big, heavy sobs. Just quiet ones. The kind that slip down slowly and leave salt behind. Noah stepped closer, but not too close. "I won't ask you to choose anything. I just need you to know. You're allowed to want more, even if it feels impossible." Samantha looked up at him, her voice shaking. "I don't know what I'm allowed to want." He reached out then, gently wiping one tear from her cheek. "You're allowed to want what makes you feel alive." She closed her eyes. For a moment, she let herself feel it, everything. The guilt, the hope, the hunger to be seen. And then she stepped back. "I can't," she said. "Not like this." Noah's face didn't fall. He nodded slowly with understanding in his eyes. "I know." He turned and walked toward the stairs, leaving her in the kitchen, alone with her thoughts and the soft hum of the refrigerator. She stood there for a long time, her hands on the counter, her heart somewhere between guilt and love, between memory and possibility. The next morning, Noah left early. He didn't say goodbye, not directly, but he left a small note on the kitchen table. "Thank you for seeing me. I'll carry that with me always." Samantha read it 3 times, then folded it and put it in her pocket. When David returned, everything looked the same. She greeted him with a warm smile, helped him with his bags, and made him tea. They sat by the fire that evening, just like always. But something inside her had changed. She had looked into something she wasn't supposed to, and found a part of herself that had been sleeping for years. She didn't know what the future held. But one thing was clear now. Some storms don't destroy. Some storms awaken, and not every fire is meant to burn the house down. Some just show you where the light still lives.